In the humid summer of 509 BC, Rome transformed through an act of sexual violence that ignited revolution. Sextus Tarquinius, son of King Tarquin the Proud, raped Lucretia, a woman whose virtue was legendary throughout the city. When she summoned her husband Collatinus and his kinsman Lucius Junius Brutus the next morning, they found a woman who had made an irreversible decision. Roman honor was not merely personal, but eternal, staining entire family lines. Despite their protests that the shame belonged to her rapist, Lucretia understood the cruel mathematics of patriarchal society. Her continued existence would forever taint her family's reputation. She plunged a dagger into her own heart, gasping final words that became revolution's catalyst. "Avenge me, and let no unchaste woman ever live," by citing Lucretia's example. Brutus, who had survived Tarquin's murderous reign by feigning idiocy for years, seized her bloodied corpse and carried it through Rome's streets. In the Forum, he displayed her body and roared, "Romans! Will we suffer kings who defile our wives and rule as gods? Let us be free or die trying." The revolution moved swiftly. Tarquin found city gates barred upon his return from military campaign. Within days, Rome abolished monarchy. Brutus and Collatinus became the first consuls, sharing power for one-year terms designed to prevent tyranny's return. The Senate, 300 patrician elders, would advise. Citizens would vote in assemblies. All officials swore binding oaths. Rex, king, became Rome's most obscene word. But ideals rarely survive contact with reality. The plebeians, Rome's farmers, artisans and soldiers, quickly discovered that replacing one master with many changed nothing fundamental. Patrician families monopolized priesthoods, magistracies, and land. Most insidiously, they controlled debt law. Plebeian farmers conscripted for endless wars returned to find crops failed, debts accumulated, and their bodies becoming collateral. Roman debt bondage was brutal. Unpaid debtors became slaves to creditors, working until death while families starved. By 494 BC, rage boiled into brilliance. The plebeians executed history's first general strike. They withdrew en masse to the Sacred Mount, 3 miles from Rome. No fields plowed, no workshops operating, no soldiers manning walls. Facing starvation and invasion, the Senate dispatched Menenius Agrippa, who told the fable of the belly and the limbs. Body parts rebelled against the belly for idleness, but soon weakened, realizing it distributed nourishment to all. The plebeians, pragmatic, negotiated. Tribunes with sacrosanct status and veto power over unjust laws. Thus began the conflict of the orders, a 2-century class struggle yielding milestones. The 12 tables in 451 BC provided written law. Let it be equal for all. The Lex Canuleia in 445 BC overturned marriage bans between classes. By 367 BC, plebeians could hold consulships after another secession. Each concession was dragged from patrician hands by implicit threat. Give us rights, or we leave you defenseless. While classes warred internally, Rome expanded relentlessly. In 390 BC, catastrophe struck. Brennus, chieftain of the Senones Gauls, led massive warriors with lime-spiked hair south. At the Allia River, Roman formations shattered under the Gallic charge. Howling warriors, cleaving swords, panicked flight. The Gauls sacked Rome methodically, burning and looting. Only the Capitoline citadel held. When Brennus demanded 1,000 pounds of gold as ransom, he tossed his sword onto the scales, snarling, "Vae victis! Woe to the vanquished!" The scene encapsulated Roman nightmares. Barbarians dictating terms in Rome itself. But Marcus Furius Camillus transformed catastrophe into resilience. He instituted military pay, rebuilt massive walls, and internalized a lesson. Never again would Rome allow foreign armies on Italian soil. The Samnite Wars, 343–220 BC, tested this resolve. Mountain warfare proved disastrous for rigid phalanx formations. At the Caudine Forks in 321 BC, Samnites trapped an entire Roman army, forcing humiliating surrender. Soldiers passed under a yoke of spears, stripped, while enemies jeered. Rome's response was characteristic. Repudiate the treaty, blame the generals, innovate. They developed the Manipular Legion, flexible units of 120 men arranged in 3 lines allowing terrain adaptation and tactical flexibility. By 290 BC, Samnium submitted. Rome's genius emerged, brutal in war, calculating in peace. Defeated peoples received various citizenship grades, creating a pyramid where everyone had someone to look down upon and a path upward. When Pyrrhus of Epirus arrived in 280 BC with war elephants, Romans had never seen such beasts. At Heraclea, elephants, tusks goring, trunks trumpeting, terrified horses and broke formations. But Pyrrhus lost 4,000 irreplaceable veterans. At Asculum, another costly victory prompted him to say, "If we win one more battle against the Romans, we shall be utterly ruined." Romans learned elephants were psychological weapons, terrifying until understood, then just vulnerable targets. More importantly, Rome could lose battles and continue fighting. Manpower reserves from Italian alliances created strategic depth no kingdom could match. By 270 BC, Rome controlled Italy. Roads like the Via Appia facilitated trade and troop movement. Latin spread. The Republic had become an empire in all but name. Across the Mediterranean, Carthage commanded North Africa's wealth. Grain, silver mines, trade monopolies. Its navy of quinqueremes ruled the seas. When Syracuse's Mamertines appealed to both powers in 264 BC, the First Punic War ignited. Rome, having no navy, captured a wrecked Carthaginian quinquereme, reverse-engineered it, and built 100 ships in 60 days. They invented the corvus, a spiked boarding bridge transforming naval warfare into land combat where Roman infantry excelled. After 23 years of grinding attrition, Carthage surrendered Sicily and paid 3,200 talents. But Hamilcar Barca, Carthage's greatest general, never forgave the defeat. He took his 9-year-old son Hannibal to a temple and made him swear eternal hatred of Rome, then left to build a new empire in Spain. Hannibal grew consuming hatred like sustenance. By 26, commanding Carthage's Spanish army, he planned the impossible: invade Italy through the Alps. In late autumn 218 BC, he led 50,000 men and 37 elephants into nightmare conditions. Blizzards, avalanches, hostile tribes. Half died. When 26,000 survivors emerged into the Po Valley, Rome faced its worst nightmare: a genius general with veterans on Italian soil. At Trebia, Hannibal drew Romans across icy water into hidden ambushes. 20,000 died, frozen corpses bobbing for days. Lake Trasimene in 217 BC was masterful. Morning fog concealed his army on heights. Consul Flaminius marched into the trap. Carthaginians swept down, pushing 15,000 Romans into the lake to drown or be slaughtered in 3 hours. Cannae in 216 BC achieved immortality through carnage. Facing 86,000 Romans, Hannibal deployed infantry in a convex line. As Romans pressed forward, the center yielded, drawing them into a tightening U-shape. Cavalry swept Roman horsemen away, then attacked from behind. Libyan infantry closed flanks. For 6 hours, 48,000 Romans were butchered. Unable to swing swords, pressed so tightly they suffocated standing. 80 senators, 2 consuls, Rome's finest died. Hannibal's men collected 3 bushels of gold rings from corpses. Rome should have surrendered. Instead, they freed slaves to fight, armed boys, melted temple gold, and refused to quit. Quintus Fabius Maximus, appointed dictator, refused battle. He shadowed Hannibal, cutting supply lines, scorching earth. Romans mocked him, but Fabius understood. Hannibal was brilliant but isolated. Time worked against him. For 15 years, Hannibal occupied southern Italy, unable to take Rome, unable to leave. Young Publius Cornelius Scipio studied Hannibal obsessively. In Spain, he captured New Carthage in a single day, seizing silver mines. In 204 BC, he invaded Africa, taking war to Carthage's homeland. When his forces torched Carthaginian camps, oil-soaked ships ignited, screaming men burned. Carthage panicked and recalled Hannibal. At Zama in 202 BC, master-faced student, Scipio deployed with gaps funneling Hannibal's elephants into kill zones. Allied cavalry drove off Carthaginian horsemen, then returned attacking from behind. Cannae reversed. Hannibal's veterans, men who'd crossed Alps, fought until they couldn't lift swords. Then they died. Carthage surrendered Spain, its navy, elephants and independence, paying 10,000 talents over 50 years. Rome had survived but was transformed. The war killed 300,000 soldiers, nearly 20% of adult males. Victory brought poisoned fruits. 200,000 slaves flooded Italy. Greeks, Iberians, Carthaginians, working mines, vast estates, and brothels. Slavery became Rome's foundation, invisible and essential. Agricultural slaves worked chained in gangs, branded, beaten. Masters could rape, torture, or kill slaves without legal consequence. Greek culture seduced Rome after conquering Syracuse and Corinth. Greek philosophy, theater, luxury spread through elite circles.
This corruption is destroying the Republic. How can you sit there silently while everything we built crumbles?
Roman aristocrats hired Greek tutors, built Greek villas, quoted Homer. Rome became hybrid, brutal pragmatism clothed in Hellenic aesthetics. Most destructively, Roman soldiers spent years abroad fighting. Their small farms, worked by families, couldn't compete with latifundia using slave labor. Veterans returned, finding land sold for debt. Families scattered. They drifted to Rome, swelling the urban proletariat. 200,000 unemployed, angry, surviving on free grain. This created a political weapon, the urban mob. Tiberius Gracchus, elected tribune in 133 BC, witnessed Etruria's desolation. Abandoned farms, slave barracks, endless estates. He quoted, "The wild beasts have dens, but Rome's defenders have only air and light." His agrarian law was moderate. Redistribute public land, limit estates to 500 jugera, settle landless citizens. The Senate went insane. On election day, Scipio Nasica led senators armed with chair legs into the forum. They beat Tiberius to death on Capitoline steps with 300 supporters. Bodies were thrown into the Tiber. The Senate declared, "We can murder tribunes threatening our wealth." Gaius Gracchus waited 10 years, grief hardening into fury. Elected tribune in 123 BC, he unleashed legislative blitz, subsidized grain, road construction, new colonies, legal reforms. When he proposed Italian citizenship, xenophobic backlash erupted. In 121 BC, the consul declared him an enemy of the state. 3,000 followers died in street fighting. Gaius fled to the Aventine, surrounded, and ordered his slave to kill him. The slave complied, then cut his own throat. Politics became zero-sum. Win or die. Gaius Marius revolutionized the military by enlisting landless poor, arming them at state expense. This created professional soldiers loyal to commanders promising land and plunder rather than the Republic. Marius crushed Germanic invasions at Aquae Sextiae and Vercelli, bodies reportedly damming rivers. But success bred arrogance. 6 consulships breaking norms. Lucius Cornelius Sulla, patrician and ruthless, commanded against Mithridates VI after the Asiatic Vespers, 80,000 Romans massacred in a single day. When Marius used mobs to transfer command, Sulla marched legions on Rome in 88 BC, soldiers storming gates, shattering the ultimate taboo. Civil war erupted. Marius died during his 7th consulship. Sulla returned in 82 BC, prescribing 4,700. Bounties claimed, fortunes seized. As dictator, he fortified Senate, weakened tribunes, retired in 79 BC to debauchery, dying diseased. Pompey cleared Mediterranean pirates, conquered the East. Crassus crushed Spartacus's slave revolt, crucifying 6,000 along the Appian Way. A mile of agony. Julius Caesar, bankrupt from games, allied with both in 60 BC, the first triumvirate. Caesar's Gallic conquest, 58-50 BC, was ruthless brilliance, bridging Rhine, invading Britain, besieging Vercingetorix at Alesia. His commentaries veiled 1 million dead beneath propaganda. The triumvirate frayed when Crassus died at Carrhae. Pompey, Senate's tool, ordered Caesar's disbandment. In 49 BC, Caesar crossed the Rubicon. The die is cast. Italy fell bloodlessly. Pharsalus routed Pompey, who died in Egypt. Caesar romanced Cleopatra, installing her amid scandal, siring Caesarion. As dictator by 44 BC, he reformed the calendar, pardoned enemies, but divine heirs alarmed. Ides of March arrived, Brutus's dagger, et tu, 23 wounds at Pompey's statue. Mark Antony seized chaos, orating, "This was the noblest Roman." Mobs burned. Octavian, heir at 18, triangulated with Antony and Lepidus. Second triumvirate, prescribing Cicero, head and hands nailed to the rostra. Philippi avenged Caesar. Brutus committed suicide. Antony luxuriated east, Cleopatra's lover, twins born. Octavian smeared him, giving Roman lands to foreigners. At Actium in 31 BC, Agrippa's rams sank Antony's fleet. Suicides followed. Antony's sword, Cleopatra's asp. In 27 BC, Octavian restored the Republic, accepting the title Augustus. The Republic died quietly, transformed into empire while pretending otherwise. The Republic's arc, from liberty's violent birth to ambition's grave, spans 482 years of human drama. Sexual violence sparking revolution, class warfare gradually forcing concessions, military genius nearly destroying the state, conquest corrupting victors, wealth destroying social fabric, reformers murdered, generals marching on their own city, civil wars consuming generations, and finally, one man's calculated patience establishing monarchy by pretending to restore the very thing he killed. The ruins teach, unchecked ambition devours everything, including itself. Power concentrated becomes power abused. Inequality breeds violence. Foreign conquest corrupts domestic virtue. And republics die not with dramatic finality, but through slow compromise. Each step justified as necessity, each precedent becoming norm, until citizens wake to discover their freedom was traded incrementally for security that never arrived. Rome's ghost haunts every democracy that follows, whispering warnings to those wise enough to listen.